center bypass.
Yep.
Wing fold flaps.
10 spread, correspond.
10 spread, correspond hook.
Yep.
Get the lights set.
Check.
Visible steering handle.
Stood.
Turn on power switch.
Stop.
Ram brake second pedal.
Where you are, normal, no anything.
AP fan lights test.
Check.
APU. You are not shocked, but you're manned and clear.
What's up, everyone, and welcome inside the cockpit of a Navy C-2 Greyhound. I'm your host and voice for today's video, Rob Roy, and that is my good buddy on the left side of the screen is pilot in command, holding his right hand in the air, shaking 3 fingers to the plane captain in front of him, saying we are starting the APU. You can hear the APU coming online. The APU is auxiliary power unit, and it is literally a mini jet engine that we use to start our propeller engines on the right and left side of the airplane. The APU makes a pretty cool sound, as you can tell, really gets my blood pumping at least. But, you know, this plane was actually built first in the 80s, and the first ever C-2s were flown in 1964. So, you know, it's been around the block a few times, but the C-2 gets her done. So we are still inside and outside the cockpit looking at all the ground personnel, making sure they're not giving us any signals, but once everything looks good, which it does now with a thumbs up, he actually turns on the APU, which you can see now powers our bird. And now he's finishing everything that needs to be done from his side on the pre-start checklist, and the co-pilot on the right side, she's doing the same thing. They both have their own separate checks to do to make sure the plane is ready to go. And now he is opening the right, center, and left bleed air shutoff valves, and with a press to test button there, another press to test up top with the T-handles, and he's pressing the annunciator panel, making sure all the lights turn on as directed. Anything you see in orange is a caution light, anything in red would be a warning light. And now we're ready to start the right engine with the number 2 in the air. Gives a signal, flips a switch, looking at the right prop, making sure it's starting to spin. He is inside the cockpit looking at indications. Just looked at his watch so that he can time the start in case it goes too long, and he has to shut it down for what's called a hung start. He's still inside the cockpit. He's listening. He's looking for any lights. Here's a really cool shot I mashed from a different engine startup of the same plane, but you can see what it looks like at the joint effort that it takes to get one of these birds online. We've got the plane captain on the bottom of the screen pointing at the number 2 engine with her left hand, and the right hand, of course, showing a number 2 signal, confirming that we are starting the right engine. Certainly a lot going on during a Navy start, but that doesn't mean we have any time to waste. You can see the co-pilot on the right side of the top screen. She's actually probably putting in some frequencies of the radios, getting that ready to go, because, you know, we've got passengers and cargo to drop off an aircraft carrier off the shore. All right, there's a cutoff signal from the pilot. You see the plane captain confirming it as well, meaning we would have cut off the huffer if we were using one to start the engine at that time. And you can see now the pilot and the plane captain are both putting their fingers in the air in upward motion, meaning we are past 55% RPM. There's an L from the pilot, meaning we are past low speed ground idle, and running the engine up to 100% RPM. And you can hear the frequency of the propellers as they run on up and eventually leveling off once the engine is fully online. Now one last look inside the cockpit, making sure everything looks stabilized, probably giving a quick thumbs up, which we cannot see once they like it, and then a number 3 signaling that we are cutting off the APU. And everything looks good from inside the cockpit, so one more thumbs up just confirming that. And you can imagine it's basically the same process for the number 1 engine, or the left engine. The doors close, prop is clear, starting to spin, and let's fast forward a little bit. And once the engine's fully online, both props are spinning, everything looks good. Now we're gonna go flying. And now we are back in the cockpit, up in the air, flying at about 24,000 feet, and just doing some of that pilot, which, unlike what Goose said to Maverick in the original Top Gun, this is what that actually looks like. Just a lot of checklists, staying ahead of the airplane, talking to ATC, making sure your frequencies are correct, make sure nothing's trying to kill you, and a lot of small talk with your co-pilot. All right, now we're coming into land. It's actually a really cool shot I was able to record from the cockpit, what it looks like when we land on land. We're actually flying to a Marine Corps air station to look at some MV-22 Ospreys. And there we are touching down the runway, and you can hear the pilot go into beta, basically meaning that he can change the pitch of the propellers to give us a shot of reverse thrust, which really helps us slow down on a landing rollout. And now I'm in the back of the airplane to hang out with the aircrew. They have the ramp down. And now he's looking out the side of the airplane to make sure everything looks good from his point of view. Don't worry, it's totally safe. Like I said earlier, we flew to this air station kind of as a field trip to lay eyes on the Osprey for the very first time as a squadron. This is the Marine Corps version of the Osprey, the MV-22. The Navy is actually transitioning all C-2s to fly the Navy version, the CMV-22. and that is becoming the new COD, the new carrier onboard delivery. And to answer your question, no, I never did transition to the Osprey. I only ever flew in it this one time. Now we're all sitting in the back of the Osprey as a squadron, taxiing past a bunch of other Ospreys on the flight line. Those props are massive, aren't they? Alright, I've about had enough of this propaganda. Let's get back to the good old days. Woo! Thank goodness. Okay, back on the flight deck of the USS Harry S. Truman, standing on the LSO platform. LSO meaning Landing Signaling Officer, also nicknamed Paddles. Their sole job is to ensure we are flying on glide slope and on centerline. You can see that tail hook is down, targeting the 3-wire. Nailed it! And no, there is not a lot of wiggle room when we come into trap. And here's some fun I had setting up an old GoPro back in 2015 on the flight deck while we were being taxied around. Kind of boring though, to be honest with you. Hold on a second, let me see if I can find something to spice this up. Much better. And now let's play a game called Guess That Fighter Jet. Ready, go. That is an FA-18E Super Hornet, single seat, yes. That is an FA-18F Super Hornet, double seat, nailed it. That is an F-18C Baby Hornet, ah! Ooh, a Super Hornet taking a catapult shot. Hansel, so hot right now. Hansel. No one cares. Alright, back on the flight deck, watching a C-2 start up from outside the cockpit. There's a plane captain pointing at the right engine, or engine number 2, with his finger and a number 2 in the air, confirming what the pilot is showing him from inside the cockpit. See the correlation there? Making sure that everything is syncing up as it should be. And now we're on the left side of the airplane, starting up engine number 1. See the green shirt right in front of us, shaking his hands. Definitely looks a little silly, but he's actually doing God's work. He's shaking like that to let everyone know, hey, this prop is spinning very, very fast, it's super dangerous, and do not walk anywhere near it. And now we have another C2 on the ball, coming into trap with a hook down. Disregard the prop on the left side of the screen there. It looks eerily close to the green shirt. I mean, he is standing pretty close, but not as close as it looks. Just the propellers were matching the frame rate of my camera, and boy, does it play tricks on the eye. You'll notice the nose of that C2 is parked right up against that red and white line in front of us, also called a foul line. That line is not to be crossed. Now that Greyhound we were standing next before is spreading its wings, getting ready for a catapult shot. And of course we have indications inside the cockpit letting us know when the wings are up and locked, but there are flight deck personnel that are actively checking that to make sure it's locked as well, and they pass that along with a thumbs up to the yellow shirt. And now the pilots inside the cockpit are completely focused on that yellow shirt telling them to taxi forward. You see him moving his hands back and forth? The faster he moves his hands, the faster we taxi. And now he's telling them to come to a stop. Now the JBD, or Jet Blast Deflector, is coming up, designed to stop all the jet blasts, or in our case prop wash, from hitting the people and planes behind us. Now the director is looking to the right, looking to his left, looking behind him, making sure everything looks good. There's a signal showing we're in tension, meaning if that catapult malfunctions from this point forward, we could go flying even though the launch button has yet to be pushed. That green shirt's getting the hell out of there, and you'll see the yellow shirt on the left just pass it off to the shooter on the right. He's giving the run-up signal to the pilots with his fingers, even though they are already at full power. The pilots inside the cockpit are doing one final sweep of all their instruments and engine indications. Once everything looks good and they like it, the pilot in the left seat gives a salute to the shooter, meaning they are ready to go. The shooter is touching the deck and pointing forward, giving the final authorization to launch the mighty battle COD. There they go! 55,000 pounds getting airborne in 300 feet! Woo! See ya!
Yo, pilots? We're working on it. It's a lot of switches and stuff.